There we go. Not bad. I think that'll work. Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Pondering. It is Monday, the 18th of May, 2020. I am Pastor Joel, and you are listening to and or watching the Pondering podcast and radio program brought to you every weekday, Monday through Friday from 7:30 to 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, the show where we ponder all things. That's right. We think things through, and then we talk about them. And there are no holds barred on this show. We talk money, politics, sex, religion, you name it. We do so from an unabashedly, unashamedly, and unapologetically Christian perspective. We welcome other perspectives. People can disagree. We have conversations here. We just ask that we not be disagreeable. So there's no name calling, motive imputing, just conversation about the facts, we hope. And we do so from the perspective of faith. Great to have you with us. If you'd like to participate, as some already are, good morning to Susie, Fred, Jen, and anyone else I missed. Looks like John is with us. Bless you. Great to have you guys aboard. If you want to participate, here's what you do. You can type into the live stream here on Facebook. And excuse me while I adjust the camera again. We're having some issues with my tripod today, and I don't know why. But anyway, yes, you can type into the live stream. That's one acceptable methodology to communicate with yours truly. Glad to have you do that. You can also email us, which is, more for after the show or after hours. That email address is ponderingradio@gmail.com. You can also post on our Facebook page, the Pondering Radio page, 24/7, 365. You can call us as well, leave a voicemail if we're not around. We always listen, and if it's something you want us to share in the air, we can do that too. That number is 860-500-7163, 860-500-7163. It's always a joy to hear from you guys. I hope you had a good weekend. So last week, I apologize. I missed a couple days, and I told you that I might. It certainly happened that way, so I'll give you the update. People have been asking. Inquiring minds want to know, where did PJ go? Well, so I had a joyful experience of having a double whammy. I guess it was a triple. I guess it was a hat trick, really. I had supposedly I was going to have a follow-up procedure, not really a procedure, more of a test from the vascular work I've had done on my right leg, and I was supposed to have them come in. They were going to do like an ultrasound and look at things, make sure everything was right. I got in there. Of course, they asked the standard questions. If you travel outside the country, no. Do you have any symptoms? No. They take your temperature. Fine. I had just been tested, as I think you all know. I shared with you on the show. I'd been tested for COVID-19 as a preliminary for what I had done on Friday, as a prerequisite, I guess you'd say. So I've tested negative. I studied really hard for that test, too, so I was glad to hear it, turned out well. No, and I told them that, too. Well, have you been around anybody who's been sick? Well, of course, I said yes, because I'm a chaplain. Now, granted, I have been really prohibited from going to some places, but there have been a couple others where I have been able to go. And so, have I encountered people that have had COVID-19? Yes. And so I told them yes. Well, they went back and consulted with the doctor and the other nurses, came back out and said, we can't treat you. We can't see you. And we'll have to reschedule. I said, well, you're going to be waiting a long time to reschedule because this is my job. I'm a hospice chaplain. I'm a regular chaplain, pastor. I am around sick people. I'm sorry. So, that was that. And I didn't hear from them, which I don't expect to. It's really sad. Pray for our healthcare workers. I mean, the nurses are even more exposed, obviously, than I am. But if that experience is any indication, they aren't going to get certain treatments either, right? They're going to be turned away just like I was. And so that was an irony especially compared to Friday, where Friday I had here's the double whammy, endoscopy and colonoscopy at the same time. Yeah. Literally had it from both ends. No, I kind of expected it was two doctors. It's really the same doctor. I thought maybe the two doctors would kind of, meet in the middle and wave at each other through the scope, but that's not how it works, I guess. He tried to get all up in my business, that doctor. I told him to butt out. Okay, I'm sorry. No, enough. No more jokes. Okay. Too early. It's Monday morning. Can't do it. Oh, gosh. Yes, I survived. Um, and good morning to Ed and Brenda and Susie who joined us. I think I said hi to Susie. Fred says he had a great weekend, got lost on the motorcycle, his usual route, which is all over. Yeah, I saw Fred. He was going by the house and he stopped to say hello. That was nice. Anyway, back to the story. So Friday, just to fill you in, so I was turned away Thursday, but it was too late to do the show at that point. So we weren't on Thursday morning. And then Friday, I had the double whammy, the endoscopy, colonoscopy. And, of course, they put you under. So, I was pretty groggy when it was all done. I didn't finish, until later. I missed the show. I was in at 6:30 in the morning. I got out of there around 8:30, between 8 and 8:30. But you can't drive. You're not supposed to operate heavy machinery. Don't make any big decisions. They tell you all this stuff, And I was kind of loopy. I was more groggy, dizzy, I think, than anything else. So outcome of the procedure. And that's the other thing that's changed so much in the last several years. Things are just like, instant now. Instant coffee, instant results, instant everything. So as soon as you finish and you come out of the anesthesia, they're trying to get you up and give you juice and okay, let's get you out of here next, and of course, by the way, too, as far as all the procedures and the fright and turning me away on Thursday, then doing this on Friday, when they do this, obviously you don't have a mask on because you got a tube down your throat, right? When you wake up, you don't have the mask on because they're trying to get you to breathe appropriately and so forth. When you leave, they put the mask on, which I guess it protects the birds when you go outside. These guys have no problem doing this procedure without your mask or anything else, and being quite intimately connected with you. I'll just leave it at that. But you want to have someone do an ultrasound of your leg, even with mask and gloves, and that can't be done. Go figure. I don't understand it all. It doesn't make any sense to me. And from what I've read, the whole thing, this whole process that we're going through right now as a country makes no sense. But I digress. So the results, they come back right away. And the doctor, as soon as you're able to speak in complete sentences and finish your juice, he sits down with you with pictures. A little memorabilia. You can have it framed, put it in your office. So I have photos of my colon. I have photos of my esophagus. It's wonderful. I don't know if I should frame them with a date and then do it again in 10 years and, show the progress. It's kind of like you do with your children, but I probably won't do that. So the results were that there's quite a bit of scarring in my esophagus, which I knew because I've had trouble swallowing, certain types of food, and things get stuck right about here, in the middle of my chest. And I looked at the pictures, and it's obvious why. There's a lot of scar tissue there, and apparently I've had acid reflux. And I kind of figured that because I get heartburn a lot, but I wasn't sure that's what it was. And so the doctor did not break through the scar tissue, which sometimes they do. While they're in there with a scope, they'll actually break the scar tissue and widen the passage. He chose not to do that. Didn't think it was the best approach. He thought it could be treated with medication, and that if the acid reflux ceased, the scar tissue would heal because it's still soft tissue, and that opening would increase, and so it would be easier to swallow. So he's put me on some meds for that. Hopefully that takes care of it, and we're done. On the other end, the other side of the equation, they did find a couple polyps. They removed one, and they're sending it out for a biopsy. Now, the doctor's not worried because he said he got the whole thing. There's a stem. They put in like a little suture. It's like a metal clamp that apparently closes things off, and then when it heals, it just falls off and goes out. But he said because he got the whole thing and was able to clamp it, and there was a stem on it that he cut, and everything was removed, he said he's not worried even if it comes back cancerous because there's nothing else there, and he got it all. So I'll get the results later this week, but it kind of is moot because if it's not cancerous, it's gone, and if it is cancerous, he got it all. So that's it, we think. So we'll find out later, probably in a couple days here. So that's that. What an exciting adventure. Aren't you thrilled that I told you all that? Let's see who else has joined us here. Anyway, thank you for your prayers, and it all turned out well. Good morning to Mickey, who's with us, Jen, Yeah, Jen says get some wallet-sized pictures. Christmas Christmas card photos. Yes, my esophagus and I wish you a Merry Christmas. Yeah, we can do that. Mm. Yeah. So that was my exciting beginning of the weekend and why we did not have a show last week. We have no other procedures or anything scheduled this week, so we will be with you Monday through Friday as planned. Hope the rest of you had a great weekend, and if you have anything you want to share, any photos of your esophagus or what other, you're welcome to share them here. Be careful. No, but that's that. Yeah, I'd love to hear about that. A lot happening in the news, a lot going on. I was this morning had interesting moment or two. I love to do like a morning devotional and share results of that or some of the results of that with my family. So, and sometimes I post these things on Facebook too or other social media. And I when I do my family, I send a verse, sometimes a comment or two with the verse to the kids and my wife. And I'm hoping they share with the grandkids too. They don't have access to social media yet. They're too little. But I shared this, and I want to read it to you because I hope it's encouraging to you. And it is how I feel and what I believe to be true. This is from Psalm 42, and some of you might have seen this if you saw my post this morning. This is David writing, "My heart is breaking as I remember how it used to be." This is from the New Living Translation, Psalm 42, verses 4 and 5. "My heart is breaking as I remember how it used to be. I walked among the crowds of worshipers, leading a great procession to the house of God, singing for joy and giving thanks amid the sound of a great celebration." He's pining for this past history of when he could do this. Now, in this case, there's different reasons that David isn't doing it, able to do it. I read that and thought, isn't this how a lot of us feel? Sunday, we can't come together. Yeah, we can watch it online and interact somewhat on social media, but it's not the same. And it is sad. I've seen videos of pastors walking through their empty sanctuary, videotaping a message for their church or talking about the current situation with the COVID-19 crisis. And it is heartbreaking. But here's where David goes in the next verse. "Why am I discouraged?" he says. "Why is my heart so sad? I will put my hope in God. I will praise him again, my Savior and my King." And he goes on from there. Here's the thing, guys. We have to have that same confidence, don't we? We should have that same confidence. There's no reason not to. He says, "My Savior, my God." And even though he's deeply discouraged, he has this hope of the future. I think we should, too. And here's why. God is in charge, number one. And number two, there's really no reason to believe that this is the new normal. People talk of it as if it were. On what scientific, logical, or even theological basis do they make those statements? What evidence do we have that truly suggests that we will never be able to go outside again without a mask on, or hug someone, or give someone a high five or a handshake, or go to church and sit next to somebody we don't know and worship and sing? The evidence we have is the media. The evidence we have are certain politicians. That's not scientific nor logical. That's emotional. And so, as David said, I will, and I hope you will, put your trust in God. Not in the media, not in the hype, but in God. And in the facts. And this is what we do in this show. We think things through. We talk about them. What do we know about COVID-19? Well, we know that it's affected about 0.5% of the population of our country. In fact, worldwide, it's even less than that. We know that of those who've been affected, when the numbers are adjusted for hype, by that I mean where we don't include people that had other comorbid conditions that were primary causes of death, like emphysema or cancer. I know of patients, because I'm in that business as a hospice chaplain, who have died of different terminal illnesses, and at the last moment or two, last week or two, got COVID-19, and I know that they are often listed as COVID-19 related deaths, quote unquote. Well, you know, did the person truly die of COVID-19 if they were dying of cancer? No, probably not. Did it expedite it? Perhaps, although I know patients that are terminally ill that have had COVID-19 and recovered. Several of them, as a matter of fact. So if someone doesn't recover and we label it as a COVID-19 death, is it necessarily a COVID-19 death? No. And so the 80,000 plus figure that we see in the nightly news is probably more realistically about half of that. Maybe we'll go as high as 60,000, but I doubt it's any higher than that. And so with that in mind, what we know is, and also there are many cases that are never discovered because they're never tested and the persons never show symptoms. Therefore, we don't know that they had it, let alone they didn't die from it, so they aren't listed that way. And so when we look at all those things, what we understand is COVID-19 has about a 95 to 98% survival rate. That's a fact. And so a disease that has affected less than 0.5% of the population and has a 95 to 98% survival rate of those it has affected is not a disease that should cause us to think that we'll never be able to come together, we'll never be able to worship together, we'll never be able to hug anyone, we'll always have masks on our faces and look like, some bank robbers wandering around the city. I don't believe it. I do not believe it. Now, I know they talk about a second wave and the possibility of combining it with the flu in the fall, and oh my gosh, we're going to be, I've heard all the noise, but what evidence do we have of that? Dr. Fauci's speculation? That's interesting, but not necessarily factual. So, listen, whatever happens will happen, and we'll get through it. But my point is, I don't accept this as the new normal. I don't think we should accept it as the new normal. It is a temporary hassle, and we'll put our trust in God, and I believe we will once again come together with people, crowds of worshipers in mass celebration, and not have to just pine away looking back at the past. So there are my thoughts from Psalm 42 for the day. Let's see what comments you guys have. Yeah, Susie'd rather hear from the esophagus end. Yes, me too. Ed says the weekend plans. So he was sharing a little bit of the weekend, what you did. I still want to hear more of that. Good stuff, guys. Ed up in Maine tells us he drove to Moosehead Lake, Rockwood, Maine area for a few hours from Bangor. Beautiful day. Yes. Saturday was gorgeous. Sunday was good too. Ed says very sad driving around Sunday morning looking at empty church parking lots. Prayed about the resolution of this, that God would quickly turn this around for his glory and honor. Amen. Amen. Absolutely. So, yeah, love to hear more of your weekend plans. Love to hear your thoughts on my editorial on Psalm 42. And look, I'm not advocating we march on the Capitol with guns like some have done in the Midwest. I think that's dangerous and silly. I am not advocating we all just go into crazy mode and take off our masks and run into nursing homes, hoping that either we don't get infected or don't infect them. I don't do that. I'm fully gowned and masked and goggled and gloved when I go in, and I think we should. I don't necessarily wear my mask when I'm driving around or walking in the park, which some people do. That's fine. They can do that. I don't. I have trouble breathing in the mask. And I'm scary looking enough without the mask on. I don't need to add to it. I advocate we be wise as serpents, but harmless as doves, as Jesus put it. But I'm just saying I don't believe this is the way it's going to be for the rest of my lifetime or yours. So, yeah, been some positive news about COVID-19 in terms of likelihood of not only a vaccine, but treatment options. Been some good numbers as far as decline of number of new cases, decline of deaths in certain areas. There's a huge portion of our country that hasn't had it. My wife was talking to her parents up in Elliott Lake, Ontario this weekend, and they haven't had a single case. Well, I take it back. I guess they had one, but the person recovered, and that's it in their little city, little town. And that's encouraging. So that's great. Jen says, thoughts on campgrounds being open this summer. We have our annual family camping trip in August. Well, funny you should mention that. We are going to Nickerson Christian Campground this weekend. We leave Friday afternoon, Friday evening, and we'll be staying till Monday morning. Still be connecting remotely. I believe we're going to be also doing a communion service. We're going to pre-record it, Karen and I, but we're going to present one for the church, and it'll be promoted and accessible through the church website. So you guys can take part in that. I think it'll probably, I'm hedging this a bit just because we haven't finalized it, but I think it'll be Sunday night, 5 o'clock-ish, give or take. But, we'll have that done. But we're going to be, so we'll be accessing you with everybody and connecting online. But we'll be at the campground. Reservations are there. They're taking our deposit. We're going up, and the kids are coming with us. And as far as I know, all systems are go. We also made a reservation in July for Thousand Trails in Sturbridge, which is a site we like to go and stay at and work out of. Karen will be off work, but I'll be working, and it's close enough to home that I can get to where I need to go, and especially if I'm making just phone calls and online visits, I can do it from there. Beautiful place next to a little lake, and we try to camp right on the lake. So that reservation was accepted. We're assuming that's a go. So I think they're starting to open, and there's no reason not to. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be a naysayer, but just some of the rules and regulations are clearly government overreach. And they don't some of the rules make no sense, and this is an example. The rule of thumb was generally essential versus non-essential, but here's what's happened, and this happens every time the government gets involved in trying to micromanage things. I was thinking about this the other day, right? So we can go to the supermarket and wander around, and we can touch the fruit and look at different things. Other people come by and touch the fruit and check the melons and see if they're ripe or whatever we do. I don't do the shopping, so bear with me here, but I know we can do that stuff. That's okay. But we can't go to Best Buy and look at television sets because that's non-essential. Okay. All right, but I probably am not going to touch all the television sets like I would touch the fruit in the supermarket, which is really where the virus would be transferred. But that's beside the point. We can say that it's okay to go to Walmart and wander around, and by the way, look at television sets too, while I'm shopping for my groceries at Walmart. So Best Buy and PC Richards and Sons have to be shut down, lay off employees, lose massive amounts of revenue and income. But Walmart can see their TV and electronic sales go through the roof because they're open, because they have food, therefore they're essential. So you see where this is going. The government has now created a superimposed unfair bias in the midst of this. And when it comes to campgrounds, we're in the same category. So it's not essential, so they got to close. Okay. But some of the things we claim to be essential are open and certainly expose us to more risk, a lot more risk. For example, it's a lot more risky to go to the gas station and handle the gas pump that the guy before you just handled, who may have come from a nursing home and have COVID all over him, than it is to go to a campground and sit 50 or 100 feet or more away from the next person who's camping, down the road from you, or even the next side over. So I think we're starting to wise up to some of this, and things are starting to open again. And so I suspect that many of the campgrounds will be functioning. Yeah, there'll be some restrictions on perhaps common areas like, the rec rooms and the pools and that kind of thing, I imagine, for a while. I hope not all summer, but at least for part of it. But as far as coming in, setting up your campsite, doing your thing with your family there and having a fire, there's no reason, medically, logically, whatsoever to say no to that. And I think I don't see that changing. I think the campgrounds in the state were given a target date of May 22nd, I think it was, and I don't anticipate that being changed this week. It would have to happen right away to stop it, and I think they're all gearing up and ready to rock and roll. So Jen, hopefully that'll be the case for you and me both. We can go. Let's see here, what else we got. Jen says, is there a way to distribute the prepackaged elements of communion to church members? Yeah, I don't know how we do that, Jen. That would be a massive undertaking in terms of driving around handing them out. We're just going to encourage people to take what they have at home, bread, some juice. The interesting thing about communion is that the Bible does not prescribe to us how it has to be done. Now, what it means is clearly taught, right? And the basic elements of bread and wine, or the fruit of the vine, which, by the way, the Bible doesn't even say that. If you really want to get technical, we would have to go unleavened bread and wine, because that's clearly what Jesus had on Passover when he instituted the symbols. They wouldn't have had leavened bread, number one, and number two, they wouldn't have had juice, no grape juice. It would have been wine. But does it have to be that? No, Jesus never said it did. The church never said it did. The apostles never taught that it did. So we can be I remember one of the most moving letters I ever received in my life was from an inmate in prison in Enfield. He was in for murder, serving a life sentence. I had worked with him and done some counseling with him. And he'd come to some Bible studies I held. And I remember him writing me and the church and asking for forgiveness, because he had taken the Passover with some bread he held onto from the dining hall, a little Wonder Bread, basically a little ball, and some stale juice he held onto. And we had done a foot washing, and so he washed his own feet, and all he had to use was the toilet in his cell room. And he wrote and asked forgiveness. I can't do this without crying. Because he felt he had dishonored God by using the wrong symbols, no wine, no unleavened bread, and a toilet to wash his feet. And he wanted God to forgive him. And I read this to the congregation because, people don't even show up sometimes for these things. And I'm like, here's an inmate who can't show up, wants to show up, and is now asking forgiveness for using what he had on hand, and because it wasn't good enough. He thought it wasn't good enough. And of course, we wrote back and told him he didn't need to worry, that God loved him, that was not an issue, and all that stuff. But listen, I would tell people at home, just use juice or use some bread, and we'll be able to do it that way. And it says, went to a convenience store, only one person allowed in at a time. Incredible. Yeah. Thankfully, the 7-Eleven next to our house doesn't do that. They do have the little markers for 6 feet apart, which is fine, but they don't ban you from entering, which is good. Not very convenient, Jen says. That's true. Yeah. So, hey, take hope, guys. Things are starting to open up, rightly so. There's scientific, medical, and logical reasons for that. And so this is not the new norm. Just keep the faith and keep trucking. And, by the way, spread the faith too, because that's a good thing. And we will be back tomorrow, 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. Tell your friends, neighbors, and complete strangers about us so they can join in. We'd love to have them. Don't forget, you can chime in on Facebook. You can catch us via multiple podcast venues and send an email to ponderingradio@gmail.com or give us a call. We'd love to hear from you. And in the meantime, stay in the Word. Keep praying. Do not check your brains at the door. Keep on pondering. We'll see you mañana. Bye for now.